Hello and welcome to VNews in English. We start with the headlines. An interview with Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Phạm Bình Minh on ASEAN Summit's outcomes. Overseas Vietnamese protest China's violations of sovereignty. Chinese readers required to meet VietGap standards. A Vietnamese delegation led by Prime Minister Nguyễn Tấn Dũng actively participated in the ASEAN Summit, which took place in Myanmar on May 10 to 11. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Phạm Bình Minh gave a review of the summit's outcomes to reporters. According to me, the Vietnamese delegation made active and important contributions to the summit's work on the priorities of ASEAN and the region, thus shaping the future of the community. Prime Minister Dũng gave a speech on the implementation of the ASEAN Community Roadmap, which sets out the path for the future of the ASEAN community and its standpoint in international relations. The Prime Minister delivered a clear message on Vietnam's viewpoint on the current serious developments in the EC, reaffirming the country's resolve to find constructive solutions to this issue. The Deputy Prime Minister said the EC issue was the focus of the summit, the first held by Myanmar as chair of ASEAN. For the first time since 1995, ASEAN issues its own statement on an issue threatening peace, maritime security and safety in the EC, he noted. ASEAN leaders expressed their deep concerns over China's setting up of a drilling rig within Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, a development which also saw the deployment of a large number of escort ships. Delegates at the summit deemed these actions as serious, violating international law, the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, UN class, and the Declaration of the Conduct of Parties in the EC, DOC, to which China is a signatory, and seriously affecting maritime security and safety in the EC, as well as regional peace and stability. In addition, ASEAN leaders discussed measures for accelerating the building of the ASEAN community, orienting the community's developments beyond 2015, and expanding ASEAN's external relations, as well as upholding its central role in the evolving regional arena. Overseas Vietnamese in many countries around the world have taken to the streets to protest China's illegal placement of an oil rig in Vietnam's continental shelf and exclusive economic zone.
More than 2,000 Vietnamese people in the Czech Republic gathered in front of the Chinese embassy in Prague on May 11th to protest China's actions. The protesters shouted slogans and raised banners calling on China to remove the rig out of the waters belonging to Vietnam's sovereignty. Vương Quốc Viễn, who led a group of war veterans at the demonstration and was one of the organizers of the event, said Vietnamese people in other localities about 400 kilometers away from Prague, such as Ostrava, Kiev, Brno, were also present here to show the anger at China's provocative act. In Japan, the Vietnamese people marched from Tokyo's Aoyama Park, bearing banners in Vietnamese, Japanese, and English, calling on China to remove the rig immediately. China's deployment of the drilling rig is the latest provocative move after many earlier acts, such as cutting exploration cables on Vietnamese vessels, burning Vietnamese fishing boats, and detaining Vietnamese fishermen. Meanwhile, in Berlin, about 5,000 people held a rally to oppose China's violation of international law. Speaking in front of the crowd, Lê Hồng Cường, head of the rally's organizers, reiterated that China's position is weak well within Vietnam's continental shelf and exclusive economic zone before attacking and damaging ships from Vietnam's Coast Guard and Fisheries Surveillance Authority. Vietnamese people love peace, hate war, and wish to maintain the friendship between the people of both sides. However, once the national sovereignty is threatened, Vietnamese people, wherever they are, will stand up to safeguard their nation. Earlier in Frankfurt, hundreds of people also held a protest at the Chinese Consulate General. Other demonstrations took place in peace.
The world community has continued its protests against China over its placement of a drilling rig in Vietnam's continental shelf and exclusive economic zone in the EC. In an interview granted to the Vietnam news agency correspondents in Paris on May 11, former French military attaché in Vietnam and China, Daniel Schaffer, noted that the act is beyond China's authority and is a violation of Vietnam's sovereignty. He described this as a new step in China's so-called nine-dot scheme to take over the EC. Research Fellow of Asia Studies of the UK Royal United Services Institute for Defence and Security Studies, Edward Swatch, has described China's illegal placement of a rig in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf in the EC as a serious challenge to the region. In a recent exclusive interview to Vietnam news agency, the expert recalls China's grab of Vietnam's Hoàng Sa or Paracel archipelago by force 40 years ago and its pursuit of the nine-dot sovereignty claim with a series of acts threatening regional maritime security. Swatch said the international community should have a more active involvement in this issue, in the direction of encouraging China to become a fairer and more responsible power of the world. In Australia, the Sydney Morning Herald quoted the Foreign Ministry spokesman as saying that the country is calling on all parties concerned to exercise restraints and stop escalating the tension. The Foreign Ministry joined the Vietnam National Oil and Gas Group on May 12 to present gifts to Vietnam Coast Guard and Fisheries Surveillance Forces in Hanoi as a gesture of gratitude towards officials who are safeguarding national sovereignty in the EC. At the event, Petro Vietnam Deputy Director General Nguyễn Quốc Thập said he highly values the unyielding spirit of the armed forces and Coast Guard at sea, especially over the past days when they have made the entire nation proud. On behalf of the officers, Vice Political Commissioner of the Vietnam's Coast Guard, Major General Hoàng Văn Đồng, and Deputy Director of the Vietnam Fisheries Resources Surveillance Force, Nguyễn Văn Trung, vowed that they are determined to firmly safeguard the sea, no matter how dangerous it is, as they have been entrusted by the party, state, and people nationwide. The two forces received $1.2 billion or $570,000 from the ministry and Petro Vietnam in total. A delegation from the Steering Committee for the Central Highlands region on May 12 visited the executive board of the Buddhist Sangha in Đắk Lắk province on the occasion of the Buddha's birth anniversary. Lữ Ngọc Cư, a permanent member of the committee, recognized the role and contributions of Buddhist monks, nuns, and followers to the local socio-economic development. He affirms that the party and state always pay attention to implementing policies and laws on religion and Buddhism in particular. Cư said he hopes the Buddhist clergy and followers will accompany the nation in building a happy life for all people, helping maintain the political security in the region. Most Venerable Thích Châu Quang, head of the board, said the local Buddhists will actively participate in programs promoting national unity and building a society of peace, prosperity, and happiness. Buddhism has been practiced in Vietnam for over 2,000 years. The country is home to more than 12 million Buddhist followers, 40,000 monks and nuns, and almost 15,000 temples, monasteries, or places to worship Buddha. Footwear exports reached $730 million in April alone, bringing the total export turnover of the products in the first 4 months of this year to nearly $2.9 billion, up 21.9% on year-on-year basis.
The export of bags, suitcases, umbrellas, and hats climbed to $821 million in the review period, up 48% against the corresponding time in 2013. The earnings from footwear exports to the traditional markets of the US, Japan, Belgium, Germany, and France saw stably in the January-April period. The turnover was also driven by the recovery of consumption in major importers, especially the European Union. The Vietnam Leather and Footwear Association expressed footwear exports prosper due to the development of a competitive edge, the introduction of generalized system of preference taxes, and the forthcoming signing of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. The association also says that Vietnam's footwear and bags have competitive advantages in the US, Japan, and other members of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. It encouraged domestic footwear producers to innovate their existing technologies to increase their productivity as well as improve the quality of products.
The Vietnamese apparel sector earned nearly $6 billion from exports in the first 4 months of 2014, a 20% rise over the same period last year. Lê Tiến Trường, Vice Director of the Vietnam Garment and Textile Group, said the sector's strong growth was foreseen right from the beginning of the year, as there was a surge in the number of orders. Currently, many enterprises have enough orders to keep them busy until the end of the third quarter or even the whole year, he said. Meanwhile, stable orders were seen in traditional markets of Vietnam like the European Union, the Republic of Korea, Japan, and the US, he added. As part of efforts to boost the sustainable development of the sector, the relevant trade union and the Vietnam Association of Garment and Textile signed new collective agreements in April to give better conditions for workers. Meanwhile, talks are underway on a huge project which aims to build a full supply chain in the northern province of Nam Dinh. The project covers a total area of 1,500 hectares and is able to employ up to 300,000 employees, he noted. Charfish breeders must adopt Vietnamese good agricultural practices or abide by international certifications suitable to Vietnamese law by the end of next year.
This is the condition they must meet if they wish to continue selling charfish products. Other conditions include that their locations and charfish growing areas must comply with charfish development plans approved by provincial people's committees. This is part of a recent government decision concerning the raising of charfish as well as processing and export of the fish. The regulation was dated April 29th and takes effect on June 20th, 2014. The decision also includes regulations concerning the quality and safety of Vietnam's processed charfish products as well as imports. On product labels, information about net waste, chemicals, or additives used during processing must be included, as well as information that Vietnam and importing countries require. Vietnamese good agricultural practices or VietGAP standards are based upon 4 criteria: disease control, environmental protection, social welfare, and traceability. The application of VietGAP standards would be essential for the aquaculture industry to provide products that meet the world market's requirements. Consumers in many markets attach importance to certifications such as Global GAP in Western Europe and the US and ASC in Northern Europe. VietGAP certificates covers those international standards. Officials note that certificates encompass the issues of environmental protection, food hygiene and safety, social responsibility, and product origin.
The annual International Kite Festival wrapped up in the southern province of Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu on May 11, with eye-catching kite flying displays leaving a deep impression on visitors. Up to 135 artisans, with 65 hailing from the overseas, participated in the 3-day festival. Tens of thousands of visitors and locals gathered at Vũng Tàu Intoco Resort, the venue of the event, to enjoy the spectacle. This is a good opportunity for Vietnamese kite aficionados to exchange the experience with foreign ones in the art of kites, while also promoting the hospitality of Vietnam to the world. This year's event, themed Flying with Vietnam, is the 5th that Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu has held so far. And that is the end of our news bulletin. Thanks for watching and goodbye from Hanoi.